Hi guys, for today's lesson we're going to be doing Hamlet Act 3 Scene 3 as well as Scene 4. What I will do is I will go through Scene 3, the summary and its explanation, and then we will move to Scene 4 and its explanation. At the beginning of the scene, what we see is King Claudius speaking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Badly shaken by the play, and now considering Hamlet's madness to be dangerous, Claudius asks the pair to escort Hamlet on a voyage to England and to depart immediately. Polonius then enters and reminds the king of his plan to hide in Gertrude's room and observe Hamlet's confrontation with her. He promises to tell Claudius all that he learns. When Polonius leaves, the king is alone and he immediately expresses his guilt and grief over his sin. A brother's murder, he says, is the oldest sin and hath the primus eldest curse upon it. He longs to ask for forgiveness, but says that he is unprepared to give up that which he gained by committing murder, namely the crown and the queen. He falls to his knees and begins to pray. Hamlet slips quietly into the room and prepares himself to kill the unseeing Claudius. It is at this point that it suddenly occurs to Hamlet that if he kills Claudius while he is praying, he will end the king's life at the moment when he was seeking forgiveness for his sins, sending Claudius's soul to heaven. This is hardly an adequate revenge, Hamlet thinks, especially because Claudius, by killing Hamlet's father before he had time to make his last confession, ensured that his brother would not go to heaven. Hamlet decides to wait, resolving to kill Claudius when the king is sinning, when he is either drunk, angry, or lustful. Claudius rises and declares that he is unable to pray sincerely. He says, "My words fly up, but my thoughts remain below." Now I want us to think about what have we learned about Hamlet. Here we see that Hamlet has once again avoided the imperative to act by involving himself in a problem of knowledge. Now that he is satisfied that he knows Claudius's guilt, he wants to know that his punishment will be sufficient. It may have been difficult to prove the former, but how can Hamlet ever hope to know the fate of Claudius's immortal soul? Here, Hamlet poses his desire to damn Claudius as a matter of fairness. His own father was killed without having cleansed his soul by praying or confessing, so why should his murderer be given that chance? But Hamlet is forced to admit that he doesn't really know what happened to his father. Having proven his uncle's guilt to himself against all odds, Hamlet suddenly finds something else to be uncertain about. As the audience, we have had plenty of opportunity to see that Hamlet is fascinated with philosophical questions. In the case of To Be or Not to Be soliloquy, we saw that his philosophizing can be a way for him to avoid thinking about or acknowledging something more immediately important. In that case, his urge to kill himself. We need to ask, is Hamlet using his speculations about Claudius's soul to avoid thinking about something in his case? Perhaps the task he has set for himself, killing another human being in cold blood, is too much for him to face. Whatever it is, the audience may once again get the sense that there is something more to Hamlet's behavior than meets the eye. Now we will move to the summary and analysis of Scene 4. In Gertrude's chamber, the Queen and Polonius wait for Hamlet's arrival. Polonius plans to hide in order to eavesdrop on Gertrude's confrontation with her son, in the hope that doing so will enable him to determine the cause of Hamlet's bizarre and threatening behavior. Hamlet then storms into the room and asks his mother why she has sent for him. She says that he has offended his father, meaning his stepfather Claudius. He interrupts her and says that she has offended his father, meaning the dead King Hamlet, by marrying Claudius. Hamlet accosts her with an almost violent intensity and declares his intention to make her fully aware of the profundity of her sin. Fearing her life, Gertrude cries out. From behind the arras, Polonius calls out for help. Hamlet, realizing that someone is behind the arras and suspecting that it might be Claudius, cries, "How now, a rat!" He draws his sword and stabs it through the tapestry, killing the unseen Polonius. Hamlet lifts the arras and discovers Polonius's body. He has not killed the king and achieved his revenge, but he has murdered the relatively innocent Polonius. He bids the old man farewell, calling him an intruding fool. Hamlet continues to denounce her and rail against Claudius until suddenly the ghost of his father again appears before him. Hamlet speaks to the apparition, but Gertrude is unable to see it and believes him to be mad. The ghost intones that it has come to remind Hamlet of his purpose, that Hamlet has not killed Claudius yet and must achieve his revenge. Towards the end of the scene, we see Hamlet dragging Polonius's body behind him and leaving his mother's room. From this scene, we can ask, what is Hamlet trying to do in his confrontation with his mother? It is possible that he wants her to confirm her knowledge of Claudius's crime, to provide further proof of his guilt. Or it may be that Hamlet wants to know whether she was complicit in the crime. Or he may feel that he needs her on his side if he is to achieve justice. While all of these are possibilities, what Hamlet actually does is urge his mother to repent for choosing Claudius over his own father. More specifically, he repeatedly demands that she avoid Claudius's bed. Hamlet's rash, murderous action in stabbing Polonius is an important illustration of his inability to coordinate his thoughts and actions, which might be considered his tragic flaw. In his passive, thoughtful mode, Hamlet is too beset by moral considerations and uncertainties to avenge his father's death by killing Claudius, even when the opportunity is before him. But when he does choose to act, he does so blindly, stabbing his anonymous enemy through a curtain. Though Gertrude's speech in this scene is largely limited to brief reactions to Hamlet's lengthy denunciations of her, it is our most revealing look at her character. As the scene progresses, Gertrude goes through several states of feeling. For Gertrude, then, the scene progresses as a sequence of great shocks, each of which weakens her resistance to Hamlet's condemnation of her behavior. Of course, Gertrude is convinced mainly by Hamlet's insistence and power of feeling, illustrating what many readers have felt to be her central characteristic: her tendency to be dominated by powerful men and her need for men to show her what to think and how to feel. This quality explains why Gertrude would have turned to Claudius so soon after her husband's death, and it also explains why she so quickly adopts Hamlet's point of view in this scene. Thank you for listening to today's lesson. I hope that you learnt a lot. Please make sure to like and subscribe and check the description box for any extra resources. Thanks. Bye.